Hey everybody, it's Will again. I got asked by a friend to do a video for true beginners, so that's what I'm working on now. Uh, Beginning guitar players should probably try to concern themselves with acoustics, just because there's less stuff to worry about. There's really not any electronics to worry about. I mean, it's pretty simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the parts of a guitar. That way you kind of know what everything's called. Pretty simple. This part here, this is called the body of the guitar. This right here is called the bridge. This is where the nut end of your string will go in. And these pegs right here will keep those in. There's an ivory piece right here that holds the guitars up high enough so that way they don't rattle on the fretboard. This right here, this is the sound hole. Basically, on an acoustic, this is where the sound is going to resonate through. If this wasn't here, it would basically sound terrible. This right here, this is the neck. The neck is basically a term for this whole piece. But you'll hear me talk about the fretboard a lot. The fretboard is the front part of the neck where these frets are. These metal pieces that go down, those are frets. Fretting a note basically is pushing down on the string between the two frets of whatever note you're trying to fret. Right here you'll see another ivory. It's usually either ivory or plastic. They come in different colors. They can also be made out of wood. That's called the nut. What the nut does is the nut keeps the strings separated. There's grooves in the nut to hold the strings. This whole piece right here, let me take this off so you can see. This whole piece right here is called the headstock. And then these things here, they're just called tuners. They go through the headstock, you wind the string around the tuners, and that's how you can tune your guitar, by adjusting these tuners up or down. Also, on an acoustic, on a lot of guitars, if the neck is bolted onto the body in some way, it's put on. There will be a truss rod, basically a long bolt that runs from the headstock all the way down to the body of the guitar. And if you look inside this acoustic, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. Probably not. Right inside here is the adjustment. It's an Allen wrench. So if you look down the neck of the guitar, you can see it should be relatively straight, maybe a slight bow. If you start to notice that your neck is flexing too far forward or too far back, depending, you want to adjust that truss rod. You want to tighten it down so that way that it'll pull the neck more in and make it more true to actually being flat. So that's that. We'll move on to the next part now, which is basically playing and where you need to start playing. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the names of the strings. If you're tuned in standard tuning, your notes are E, A, D, G, B, and E. Okay, now if you just strum all of those 6 strings open, it sounds kind of nasty. But that's how it should sound. The way you get that tuning is, first of all, if you're watching this video, try to tune with your ear your A string. A string is probably the easiest one to do because it's not such a low tone that you can kind of get confused with the tones, but it's not so high that it's annoying. So if you just hit your A, which is the second string from the top, right? Second string from the top should be A. Okay, so while you're listening to this video, try to tune your second string from the top to this note. Try to get as close as you can. Okay, now the open A string should be the same note as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fret of the next string down, which is the E string. So if you play this note here without pushing down too hard, those should be pretty close. Those are going to be the same notes. And you follow that same principle up the fretboard. So A, D, G. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit different. When you're tuning your 4th and 5th strings, you're going to come down 1 fret. That's the minor in that scale. Okay, and then for the final string, it's going to be back up to the 5th fret. Okay, so when tuning, remember 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. Okay, and so that's kind of how that works when you're tuning. So take a second, tune your guitar, and then I'll come back with your first introduction to scales and chords. Okay, so now I'm gonna introduce you to scales and chords. I'm gonna start very simple with a very simple opening scale. You know, professional guitar teachers, you know, they'll come at you and be like, well, you need to learn the C major scale. That's true. The C major scale has no sharps or flats, so it's easy to understand. But I'm certainly not a professional guitar instructor. I want you to learn how to play the guitar, but I want you to progress. If you're playing the C major scale over and over again, the only thing you're going to progress at is playing the C major scale. And we all want to play chords, right? We all want to get to a point where we can do something and actually have something to account for what we're learning. So the first thing I want to teach you is the E major scale, starting at the low E. That's basically that first string, that top string, in an open play position. Okay. Now the way the major scales are structured is basically your root note, whole step. That's the beginning of it. And when I talk about steps, I mean fret movement. Okay, so 1 step is 1 fret movement. So if I were to start here at the A, a half a step would be 1 fret movement to the very next fret. A whole step is moving from your root note position up 2 frets movement. So basically you go from A to B. So basically A to A sharp is half step, A to B is a whole step. A to B sharp is 1.5 steps, and so on and so forth. But for this simple exercise, all we're really going to do is we're just going to go open 1 step, then 1 more step, then half step. Then we're going to go another whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and then a half step. That is the E major scale. Playing it backwards. Okay, you want to try to play that until the point where you can get all the notes to ring out nice and clear. You don't want a lot of fret buzz, stuff like that going on. One tip, when you're fretting a note, try to fret the note a little bit closer to the forward fret. If you play it in the middle, it can be a little bit harder. If you play it too far back, you'll get fret buzz. So try to play it a little bit forward of the center position, a little bit closer to that front fret. That way it'll put more pressure on that lead fret and you'll be able to ring that note out a little bit clearer. Okay, now I just played the E major scale from E to E and back down in a linear fashion, meaning I played it in a straight line on 1 string up the neck and back down the neck. I also want you to learn how to play that in what's called modal fashion. So basically, modal fashion is basically playing it pretty simple. Basically, you're going open string, whole step, open string, whole step, first fret on the next string, half step. That's the first 8 notes of that major scale, and those are the only notes I really want you to worry about right now. Okay, so if you notice, a lot of these notes are kind of lining up. We're concentrating the most dominant fret position in that scale is the 2nd fret. We hit it there. We hit it right there. We hit it right there. And we hit it right there as well. So if you were to play an open E, and then on the A and the D string, fret with 2 fingers, fret the 2nd fret, guess what? You just played a chord. Okay, granted, it's a power chord, it's not a full bar chord or something like that, but you're playing a chord. Okay, so I want you to practice on that, and that rule will apply whichever scale you're playing. I mean, that's basically you're playing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're playing the 1st, the 5th, and the 8th note of that scale. Right there. You're playing a chord. Okay, you can do the same thing if you were to play it in a linear fashion on the 5th fret of the E string, which is the A. If you were to play that same thing, fret that A, then fret that 7th fret on the A string, and the 7th fret on the D string, and play all those at the same time. That's a power chord. Power chords are pretty much the basis of everything that guitar players do. Almost every song starts out as power chords. You know, you get a guitar player that's just kind of, you know, dinking around with power chords. That's what I want you to start working on right now. So watch this video as many times as you need to. Just remember the E major scale. Open, whole step, open, whole step. That's another whole step from the previous position, but it's going to be the 1st fret on the D string, and then a half step, and then play it back down. That's a scale right there. If you can play that, you can play a scale and you can play a chord. I'll record more videos for the Guitar 101 series, and then help everybody get progressing. So practice on that and let me know what you think. If I'm moving too fast or if I'm kind of dumbing it down a little bit too much, please let me know. Like, share, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and keep checking back. Thank you for watching.